Welcome back to the Battery Podcast. I'm Aiden.
And I'm Jack.
And I'm Casey.
That's right. We are excited to welcome Casey to the podcast as well. She was doing some behind the scenes with the Battery in 2024. We're excited to have her more front of house, you could say, more actively in the leadership in 2025. So Casey, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be alongside you guys this season, being more involved and more active. Super excited to be on the podcast with you guys from time to time, being a guest host.
Yeah, and what more perfect episode to debut could there be than with our guest for this episode? I think all of our favorite coach, at least personality wise, Joe Mazzulla gets results, but I just
Yeah.
not a great conversationalist. Uh,
But there's definitely a lot of similarities between the two. We've talked about this before.
yeah, oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, the singular devotion, um, the blocking
The
out of
process,
the even keel.
like, yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah.
Um, one of them would be a lot more fun to have a beer with than the other, I think. Uh,
For sure.
yeah, not that I would say no to a beer with Joe Mazzulla. Anyway,
I don't know. He's got. I think Joe Mazzulla will be pretty interesting.
oh, definitely. Yeah,
He. I mean, his whole challenge coin thing. That's a man that would be interesting to have away from the microphone.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But
Hopefully we get him on the podcast someday, but
yeah,
it
Yeah,
happens so far afield.
yeah.
there we go.
Not right now.
Yeah, all right. I think, he doesn't need any further introduction. Let's just kick it over to our interview with Cannons head coach Brian Holman. And welcome again to Coach Brian Holman. Coach, I think you're now our most frequent guest on the podcast. So thank you very much. I think there's not a lot of sports podcasts that can say that their favorite team's head coach is their most frequent guest. So thank you again for coming on. Can't wait to see you again next week and cheer on the Cannons.
Yeah, Aiden, I appreciate it. It's good to see you guys. And, you know, I think that's a good thing, right? Like, I enjoy speaking with you. And we got a new guest here, Casey. I can't wait to hear from her and talking to you about everything Cannons. And I just appreciate all you guys do. I really, I do. And, but hopefully we can get the messages out to the fans and let everybody know what we're thinking. And I'm looking forward to next week as well, getting over to Northern Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's start there. Champ Series starts a week from tomorrow when we're recording this, but it'll be less than a week when this comes out. How do you feel going into year two, and what are you taking from that year one experience to grow and improve this year?
Yeah, I feel great. I mean, they're really excited. We've had a bunch of Zooms over the last couple of months. And I think to your point, having a year under our belt, should help a little bit. One thing I caution them is just trying to don't overanalyze it too much, right? Like last year we were in and we were just wide-eyed. Like I had no idea. I remember waking up. I think I told you guys this, maybe not. I remember waking up like 2 days before we were scheduled to go over and start practice in the middle of the night, and I don't lose sleep over much. I kind of let things go. But I woke up, it was like 2:40, and I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't even know how to design a practice for this. Like there's 12 guys out there. I've never coached, so I just had to start thinking about basketball and kind of reframe my thought process around a basketball team. And I coached basketball. Basketball was my favorite sport growing up. I played it my whole life. And that really helped me kind of settle in. So, but yeah, we have experience. We have film. We didn't have any film last year except the opponents. So I think there's areas that we will really improve on that we saw from the film. But I don't want our guys overthinking it too much. It's still a game that just is reactionary. There's a lot of free play out there that I want to continue to encourage. I thought that was a big point of emphasis last year for us, is just to play the game and it really makes you one thing I really love about the game is it just makes you do what we talk about as cannons all the time. It's just focus on the next play. Like you just don't have time. You take a shot and you miss the goal, it's turnover. Like you got to turn around, either get off the field or go play defense, right? You take a shot and get saved. You got to turn around and so I like that, and that really fits in our mindset. So, I'm looking forward to next week's event for sure.
Yeah, I think as we are all. So I mean, it's not just you returning. Obviously, a lot of the players, and then Brodie Merrill as well. Maybe the most experienced, best mind, both as a coach and a player on the defensive side of the ball. What does he bring to the sideline for you? How important is it to have him back there? Um, and are we going to see him on the sideline, or even dressing up in a uniform this summer?
Well, I'll start with the second question first. No. uh, uh, I've asked Brodie not to play. He doesn't want to play anymore. I've asked him to coach, and it's too hard. He's got twin boys. I think they're 10 years old now, and I think his daughter is 8. And Brodie's a wonderful, wonderful dad. I think he coaches every single one of their teams. And the PLL schedule is rough, man. You're gone literally. You're gone every single weekend for 3 months, and kids that age, a lot of their activities are being done all summer. And I would feel horrible if I was the one causing Brodie to be away from his family at those ages. So he would love to do it. He told me that multiple times. I would love to have him, but it's just not feasible. So that being said, what the arrangement I've made with him and his wife and his kids is I get him 1 week out of the year. So I got him for Champ Series, and we're going to make the best out of it. That's for dang sure. So, Aiden, to answer your question, he's just Brodie, man. He's an all-time great. He's proved it in every facet of his lacrosse career, as a player, as a coach, as a leader, as a captain. And he just demands instant respect. He walks into the room. Every player on our team knows who he is, and they know how he played. And Brodie wasn't a guy that backed off or away from anybody at any time. And so I think he brings that element into the locker room of instant respect, and he brings an element of toughness that's really. I'd like to think I'm a tough guy, but I'm an old guy, and Brodie's still relevant in today's world. His favorite word is tenacious. He loves that word, and he wants us to be a tenacious lacrosse team for that week, and we will be. And he's just a wonderful person to be around. I found it. Because we really didn't know each other extremely well. We've had multiple conversations before we got time last week together, and we really clicked. We have a very similar mindset to a lot of things, but I just love how thoughtful he is. For a big, strong, tough guy, he's extremely thoughtful. He's extremely caring in his way that he approaches the guys. The guys feel that. So he's just such a wonderful attribute, and it just wouldn't be the same doing it without him. I know that. And we really enjoy our time together for the week and each other. And then obviously we enjoy our time with the guys. So he has an impact obviously on the field, but he has probably a bigger impact in the locker room and then in our team meetings. Just a lot of his wisdom that he can impart, from his playing days. So, I'm very, very lucky and very grateful that he's part of this, because he certainly makes us better. So,
Yeah. With Brodie being Canadian and having that field and box experience, how much does that help just expand, especially when you're playing sixes, which, I think it draws a lot of comparisons to the box game. How much does him having that experience help on the
yeah,
staff?
Jack, it helps a lot. I mean, he's also on the Canadian national team sixes staff, right? So he's drawing some information from their processes. but it helps. But at the end of the day, I think really what he emphasizes and what I emphasize is, it's about the team, and it's about establishing a method of play that is going to show the other team that you're here, right? And no matter what you do, you're still going to have to execute whatever style you're going to play. He's really big on from a defensive perspective on his methods. Like what I loved about last year was that we really weren't sure how we were going to do this, but once he kind of felt like, all right, this is the direction that I wanted him to go in, uh, he was really able to quickly implement his style within my style, right? Does that make sense? And teach it instantaneously. The guys picked it up very quick. So, and that's just a sign of a really good teacher that can, take something that's kind of generic and then reframe it and then be able to teach it in a way that the players can pick it up in a quick fashion. So he's got a gift there. But it clearly helps him have an experience with the Canadians and also just having the indoor style for sure.
Yeah. All right. So we obviously we've talked about Brodie. We've talked about the people coming back. We have some new faces as well that I mean, I was really excited to see Alex Bordaro get a shot in Champ Series. Loved what I saw from him first year, but maybe most excited about Carter Parlett, who we did not get to see suit up for the Cannons in 2024. What can we expect to see from him, presumably on the defensive end in Champ Series in 2025?
Yeah, great question. I have no idea. I haven't seen him play since he played at Notre Dame. So here's what I know. Here's what I know. I'm excited as heck too because I loved him at Notre Dame. I thought he was a tough kid. He was a kid that is from Florida. Played offensive mid, probably the majority. I recruited him at Utah when I was there. Very athletic. Loves the sport of lacrosse, and I think he's going to bring that element of athleticism and toughness to our team that we're looking for out of that position. And here's the other thing I'll tell you about Carter. So, as you guys know, he didn't make the 19, so he was on the 25 all last year. He never missed a Zoom call the whole season, not one. So it just showed me that he cared because it's hard for those guys that are on the 25 to stay engaged, right? I do the best I can. The team supports them in so many ways. I think it's critical to try to keep them motivated and engaged because you might need them, right? Like, and if somebody gets hurt, they're the next guy up. But it's just hard. You're not around a team, you're not traveling, you're not practicing, you're not playing. And Carter never ever missed a Zoom call. And he was usually the first guy on. I usually get on 10 or 15 minutes earlier to bullshit with the guys a little bit before we start. And he was always one of the first guys on. So I appreciated that. And that to me is why he's playing. He's earned that right. So I'm excited. And I know he is too. He'll probably be a little nervous early on, just getting his feet wet. But I hope he'll settle in and bring some of that athletic toughness to the table for us.
Yeah, we can't wait to see him. Hopefully we get a chance. I don't know. I mean, we all got busy schedules that week, but would love to get a chance to catch up with him and see how it's going. Hopefully we're all celebrating a win together at the end of the week.
That would be great.
Yeah. So there's some other rule changes coming to Champ Series that maybe made it possible, at least for one of those guys. So bigger roster, adding one more spot. And no sudden death overtime in the first. We play one 4-minute period. How do you feel about? I think there's some other changes too, but I can't remember off the top of my head. How do you feel about those changes to the game? You think it's like an advantage to? I mean, just how do you feel about those changes?
Yeah, I'll answer one question, then I'll ask you guys what do you think about it? So I think the roster adding an extra guy is great. it's a long week. It's not, we went through it last year. Yeah, it's hard, but it's at the end of the day, man. I mean, they're 8 minute quarters. These guys are young. I go back, thinking about when I would just go out, you know, and play in the schoolyard at 14, 15, 16. You can play all day. You can play 5 hours a day if you wanted to. So I don't want us to get, we won't, because we didn't do this last year, get caught up in how tough it is and how hard it is and all that. I mean, you're getting paid, you're a professional athlete, you got trainers, you got ice baths, you got every single bit of rehabilitation you could, so so adding the extra guy does help, because if somebody gets hurt, right, that really helps us a lot. So I'm all in on that. So the other rule changes are the sudden death, and then a 10-second clearing clock.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it around, ask you guys, what do you think about the sudden death change?
I mean, I can go first, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm honestly pretty torn on how to feel about it. I think that from a fairness standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. Sixes is such a high scoring game. You are mostly going to see whoever wins the faceoff score a goal and win the game. It's like in basketball, it's not sudden death overtime. They play a 5 minute period because you go back and forth. So from a fairness standpoint, it makes sense. I understand the logic behind it. But I think that the sudden death is just from an entertainment value,
Mm.
Yeah.
much more exciting. And yeah, you can say that you're normally going to see a goal on the first possession in sixes, but look at the championship game last year, that there was four different possessions. Each team got the ball multiple times, and there were ridiculous saves. And not to say that guys would have gone to, like, no one's going to take it easy. You're out there in an overtime in a championship game, but knowing that if you don't score right now, the other team can go score and win, I think just adds another layer to the desperation of it. And maybe you don't see those, ridiculous DeLuca save that he had on the first one. Maybe he doesn't say that because he knows that we can just go down and score again, and he's not gonna go all out because he's needs to stay locked in for another 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Feel free
Yeah.
to disagree with me. That might be a hot take.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's too hot of a take. I do hope we see a double overtime so that it does still go to sudden death. I hope the Cannons are involved.
Mm.
I would especially love if it's the game before the Cannons play one of those, so they're just a little bit extra tired. Um, or maybe in the women's game too. So we'll
Yeah.
talk about that in a bit. But yeah, I do agree with from the fairness point. Like we saw in the NFL when like in a team could go over and kick a field goal and win in overtime. It's just too unfair. Now, you have to win a faceoff to get the ball in lacrosse, unlike in football. So that does like, well, you don't want to lose, go win the faceoff. But no, I think it's a net positive, but I do think and hope we'll see a double OT game. Because that sudden death drama you just can't beat.
I'd
JC?
have to agree with the guys. Mostly. I do love the pressure and the speed and everything of that sudden death OT. When that starts, it's just like game on. Like everybody just has to be firing on all cylinders. It just the fans are so much more excited. I love the drama of sudden death.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think you guys, I think you nailed it. I think Jack, you framed it well. Casey, um, from a coaching perspective, ultimately what I always want is, I want the players to have a fair shot at deciding the game, right? And with sudden death, especially like if you don't have a really good face-off guy, it's just you're working at such a disadvantage out of the gate. So I see that part of it. Um, I think you're going to see. I think you are going to see a double.
mm,
You know, and I think Jack Casey, you said it too. Like I don't think guys, there's just going to be a little bit of a different mental approach. Like, knowing that, you know, every shot is like, last year, everybody's just holding their breath every time somebody got the
Hmm.
ball, right? I think we're going to get to that, but I think it's a good call because sometimes I've seen these games win, like just end where you just didn't even have a shot. Like it just was over. And you're like, damn, you just played so hard, got it to this point, and you didn't even get an opportunity to win the game. But I see both sides of it as well. So and then the other change I think is going to have an effect that a lot of people aren't talking about is the 10-second
Oh
clearing
yeah.
count. Now, when you go back and look at all the film from last year, which I've done multiple times, there was multiple violations in the clearing. Now, that being said, you know, we weren't working on a 10-second count, right? So there was a lot of, but it's a lot faster than you think it is,
Hmm.
especially out of a shot. Miss the cage, goes to the end line. You're gonna work on clearing a little bit more. Where last year never worked on clearing. Just gonna have guys relative to the ball. I think there are going to be opportunities for basketball oriented types of press and traps, especially if guys are subbing off casually.
Hmm.
So, you know, the only issue you have with that is like last year, we tried a lot of different things the first game to like game and a half, like because we knew, and the other change too, Aiden, is all these games count now,
Hmm.
right? So
Yep.
so there's no that I love. I love. I don't think anybody, God forbid it's us, but I don't think anybody that finishes in last place in any professional sport team should get in the playoffs. Like that's bullshit. So I'm glad that change was made. And again, I hope it isn't us. But if we're there, we don't deserve to be in the playoffs. So, um, but so you had some time last year to play around. So like that scrimmage might be a time where I try a couple of different things just to get a feel for them. Even we're playing the Atlas, and I know we don't play them. We play them on the last game. By that time, they'll probably have, forget about whatever we did on that scrimmage day. But you don't have much time to play around with different sets and different looks. Every game's important, and they incentivized the players in a little bit different way. Based on wins, which I think is great. So
Mhm.
uh, you know, I think the 10-second clearing clock is going to have a factor somewhere in this tournament
Yeah.
that it didn't have last year. So,
Yeah.
but I think overall, I really appreciate the league because they take feedback very, very well, and a lot of that feedback was what a lot of guys were saying from last year.
Mm.
Really changed.
Yeah. I mean, you think of because it was a 20-second clock to clear previously, I think, which is, that's
Right.
2/3 of the time. Like,
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah, imagine that would be what in the PLL if you had like 35 seconds to clear,
Yeah.
which, I mean, one, that doesn't give you any time on offense, but two, it just like,
It's absurd.
yeah, it really slows the pace of it down.
Yeah.
I think just to quickly touch on that 10-second clock, I mean, having a goalie like Adam Gitteman who can pass as well as any goalie ever. I think he and Colin, I think both had some assists last year.
Yeah.
I think we'll see probably more point totals from the goalies as and
Yeah, you definitely could, and you might see him coming across midfield line if
yeah,
you start pressing and trapping a little bit. So Gitz has no problem with that. I don't want to see Kirsty running over there too much, but Gitz has no problem doing
no, yeah, I know that because
it.
I was I remember when the Cannons of old lost a playoff game because he went down to try to shoot
Yeah,
at overtime against the Lizards.
that's right. Exactly. He remembers it too.
Yeah, I'm pretty. That being said, if he scores an OT winner this year, all will be forgiven.
Yeah, there you go. I'll let him know.
Yeah. Um, cool. So I mentioned the guard briefly there, the women's league. Have you been in touch with Lori DeLuca, with their head coach at all? What kind of relationship interaction have you had with guard players coaching at all?
I haven't, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I will. The Maryland team reached out to me, and uh, you know, I spent some time with them. but nobody from Boston's reached out. So I don't know her. I'm more than willing to help in
Mm,
any which way I can. The girls' game is going to be a little bit different.
yeah.
Um, I don't know how much the 2 point line is going to come into play. I think their game's going to be. I think their game's going to be a blast, honestly.
Yeah.
But there are some things that would definitely cross over. The subbing pieces are something that I spent a lot of time talking to the Maryland girls
Mm,
about. But
yeah.
if Coach wants to give me a call, I'm more than happy to lend whatever I can to help her out for sure.
Yeah. Well, you do
You
have that
guys
family
are
connection to Maryland.
that
Yeah, I
that's what I
do.
was just gonna say. The Holman family is now a house divided in
Yeah.
professional lacrosse.
It's true.
What do we got to do to get Alex Ost over
Yeah,
on the guard?
I don't know, man. I think
it's gonna be tough.
yeah, here, this is what I know works for
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
true. It's true.
money talks. I know
Mm.
that.
It sure
So
does. Yeah.
yeah.
And man, if we had Alex Ostholman and Charlotte North on the same roster, just give
Wow.
them the
Man.
crown now.
Yeah.
Crazy. So good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. I know they're excited. I thought that
Yeah.
was a great move for the PLL to add the women. Awesome move.
Yeah, I'm so excited. We didn't get to see the All-Star game last year. We were in a session, but I'm really glad we're going to get to see all those games this year. Just more lacrosse. That's good for the world. And get a few more off days in there for you all as well, which I'm sure you and the
Yeah,
team
it
appreciate.
helps. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. We got so we've been submitting or opening up to questions from people on our Instagram as well. So I wanted to get to a couple of those. Is so from Mason Weirlax had a few, but he said, do you have any players that you think that whose games are perfect for sixes? I didn't phrase that super well,
Um,
but
yeah, I think a couple of guys. I think number one that stands out. I think Matt Campbell is. I mean, I'll be shocked if Matt doesn't make the world team in
mm,
28. I mean, you can't stop him
nope.
one on one. He can shoot the ball from every spot on the field. He can get to wherever he wants to get, and he can shoot the two. I know the two is not going to be a part of the world games, but and then he can get back and he's as good a defender as anybody, right? So he, in my mind, is like if you were going to sculpt someone, um, and as you guys know, the beauty of Matt is he's one of the greatest team players that there is. He could care less about his glory.
Yeah.
It's just about the team and winning. So I think he's going to make a mark. A guy like Ryan Drenner is very similar to Matt. He plays really well in space. He's got a multitude of moves. He can beat you out top. He can take you behind, dodge from the wing, can finish with both hands. He's very athletic. He can play defense. So I think those are the guys that are going to end up, you know, forging their way into the world games. But by that time, there's a lot of kids coming in and out of college and stuff. But if I were to pick one, I would say Matt for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll add someone else who unfortunately can't make it because he's too good at lacrosse. Connor Kirst. I mean,
Yeah.
if you could have him on the roster.
Yeah. Connor would be similar to Matt, just that big physical presence that can dodge, that can play both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to come off the field, can shoot from multiple places, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
He is too busy, I believe, captaining the Vegas Desert Dogs.
Yes,
So
he is. Yes, he is. He's a little hurt right now, but got to get him back in the lineup soon.
yeah, I certainly hope he's ready for June.
He will be.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, it's a bit old news at this point, but I think we would have to bring it up now that we have. So we did get Whitpod Caminer 25 ask, but we had wanted to ask as well. Is why and how did the Pat Kavanagh trade come about?
Yeah, I would be disappointed if you didn't ask, honestly. So I think you got Kavanaugh still on the back of your screen
Oh,
there. So,
yeah, his brother. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
that's good.
Matt.
That's good. Good. Leave Matt there.
Champ Series last year,
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
actually.
It, I don't want to like. it wasn't like overly dramatic, and it wasn't, but it is. There's kind of a twist and turn to the story, right? So, but where it all started from was at the end of every season. I send out a questionnaire to the guys, and then we get on FaceTime. I meet with every guy individually, and we just talk through the questionnaire, and we talk about the season. We talk about everything, anything that's on their mind. Um, and when I had the phone call with Matthew, when I had the FaceTime with Pat, you know, and one of the questions in the questionnaire is, tell me about your experience this year from the team's perspective, from coach's perspective. How did you feel? Yada yada yada, and then, you know, talk to me about what your role is and what you see as your value and your role for the team moving into next year. And then there's a lot of other questions in there, but that's kind of it. So we got to that point, and Pat was, he was just, the whole Kavanagh thing was it was tough, right? His dream was to play with his brother. He idolizes Matt, and I know why. I have an older brother, 6 years older than me, that I idolize. He was like a father to me. And when Matt wasn't playing, it really affected Pat personally, and I knew that was a risk when you bring brothers on the team. I know that. When Pat Aslanian wasn't playing, Chris struggled for a little bit, but we talked through it, and he understood that as a player, his obligation was to the team and to do his best. It wasn't to his brother at that point. But that's a risk you take, right? And he was upset about that. And the bottom line, when I said, where do you see yourself playing next year in your role? He's like, well, I want the ball on my stick. I want to play at X. And I said, well, we have a guy back there. He does pretty well. And I said, you'll have an opportunity to earn it. But right now, I'm not just going to hand you the ball. And when I drafted Pat, our conversation centered around him playing midfield to start. And then eventually, I don't know how long Marcus is going to play. We have actually never had this conversation, and that's something that we will have here shortly. And I said, eventually Mark's, going to move out. And I think it's somewhere between 1 and 3 years, and slide right into that righty spot, and got a lefty, and we got Asher, and that was all okay. Like, that was all talked about, and that was the plan. But I think the Matt situation didn't set well with Pat, and I think there's some people in Pat's ear, I don't know who, that are telling him he should be the guy. And I can't say that he shouldn't, but in my eyes, with the Cannons, he hasn't earned that right yet. And so I'm not one of just handing things to people because of who they are or what they are. And Pat's going to be a heck of a lacrosse player. I know that. I know we're going to have to defend him. So I said, look, let's let this settle down, and let's revisit it in a couple of weeks. I want you to be a part of this organization. Your brother's been a big part. I'm sure we can come to some middle ground here, but at the end of the day, it's going to be about earning it. Let's go to sixes, I said, and let's play there and be with the guys and yada yada. So we reconvened after a couple of weeks, and he was still pretty adamant, very adamant, that he wanted to move on. So he asked me to seek a trade. Now, once that happens, that's what I'm doing. So once the player sort of crosses that line a little bit, like I wanted him to stay, and I told him that, and I said that there'll be plenty of opportunity for us to work through this with training camp and next year, whatever. But ultimately, it's about the team, and I'm going to put the people in the spots that I feel and the coaches feel are the best people to play where they're playing for the betterment of the team. Now, you beat Asher out and you want to play at X and you're the best guy for it, that's where you'll play. I'm good with that. And that was told to him multiple times. But once he said, I want to trade, then kind of all bets are off there with me. Then he's decided that he doesn't want to be part of our organization anymore. And the best thing that I could do for him and for us is get him traded, right? Like I don't want an unhappy Pat Kavanagh. Like I don't want an unhappy Marcus Holman.
Yeah.
If he doesn't want to be part of our organization and see what we see and want to be around the guys that we have in our locker room, if that other thing's more important, then I want to go find that for them. So, and that was really how, I mean, it was very amicable. Like we had some laughs over the whole thing, you know, um, and I felt that we both won the trade. I felt, and I asked him where would he like to go, and he told me, he gave me three teams, and I started working with all three of those teams, and the Outlaws were the team that eventually gave me what I believed was the best deal, and a fair deal for Pat. And I told Pat this too. I said, Pat, I'm not just going to trade you to trade you. Like, so unless I get what I believe is fair value for Pat Kavanagh, then you're going to be a cannon. Now, whether you want to play or not, that's your decision. All right. But I'm just not dumping you out there in the woods. You have value. All right. So I worked with all three teams and we had multiple offers on the table. And then when I felt like the Outlaws came back with their first draft pick, that wasn't their first offering or their second offering. When I felt like getting number 3 and getting their first second round pick next year, then when I looked at the bigger picture, I felt like we are going to get two very, very good lacrosse players for one. You're going to get a number 3 pick this year who should be a starter for us at whatever position we pick. And I'm going to get the Outlaws' first second round pick next year. That could fall anywhere between 8 and 16. That kid's going to end up being a starter for us, right? And now next year, we've got a first rounder and 2 second rounders and a third rounder. So I'm starting to get what I wanted as a goal for our organization to start accumulating more draft picks. So, when you look at the bigger picture, the macro, I believe we made a good deal, and I know Pat's happy, and I know the Outlaws are happy. So they believe they made a good deal. And in all my experience in making deals, when both parties walk away feeling like they won, then it's a good deal. And that happened on this one. So, yeah, not something that I would have scripted when we drafted him. But, the Lord works in funny ways. And at the end of the day, if we get the player that we want, that wants to be a cannon, that wants to play for the organization and the team, and Pat goes on to the Outlaws and has a great career, then everything worked out. So that's as short as I can make it over about a 2.5-month process. So
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, that was a fantastic response. Great to hear because I know, among our followers, broader audience, there was certainly quite polarizing reactions on both ends of the spectrum.
yeah, and I totally understand that. And what I said to one interviewer was, and this is where it comes down to, is just that I want our audience, our supporters, one of our pillars is trust, right? And what I want the Boston Cannons fans to do is trust me. I don't think I've let you down yet. We're continuing to build this organization to where I dream it will be, and that's one that will be constantly in the top of the PLL, and we're very close to getting there. And I've got to make the decisions that are the best for the organization, not necessarily the best for the player. Hopefully they both coincide, but sometimes they don't. This one wasn't. And so just trust and know that I did everything I could to try to keep Pat and make him want to be part of it. But at the end of the day, that's not what he was looking for. And I felt like I said, we've got really a fair, deal in return. We got a 3 for a 6, and we've got a potentially an 8, 9, or a 10, 11 next year. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, putting it just that way, you traded the sixth overall pick for the third overall pick. Now, who that guy winds up being, of course, yet to be determined. But
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, it does make me want to talk about the implications now of this trade. So the Cannons have picks 3, 4, and 12, which has been a rare luxury in your time.
Yeah.
So this will only be your second and third first round picks. But I imagine you're considering a lot of things. There's not much you could do to move up in this year's draft, but maybe you're trying that or just taking yeah. Walk us through. Don't spoil all the secrets, but what you've been considering with those picks, whether position, player, or anything of that sort.
Yeah. Honestly, guys, like it's still so far away. So our board is started, right?
Yeah.
And the way we do it, there isn't magic to this, right? So we look at our team and we analyze, the guys that are coming back and the guys that aren't coming back, and we start to look at, holes that need to be filled. Now, there's two schools of thought with draft and free agency. One school of thought, and I sort of tend to lean a little bit towards this, is that you fill holes through free agency and you draft the absolute best player that's available at 3. So like say the best player in the country at 3 was let's say at 3 was Brandon Lavelle, the defenseman from Penn. Let's just say that he had a phenomenal year, locked down every Ivy League, cursed all the big time lacrosse players, and everybody agreed. Then that logic tells you to pick that guy, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you would say, well, why would you pick him? You have Epple and Quixote and Bryce Young, but at the end of the day, he's the best player, right? So he's going to make your team better no matter what, right? And if he's really good, he'll find a way to get on the field somehow, right? So that's one school of thought. The other school of thought is, you supplement through free agency, but then you look for need. Like obviously everybody knows we need a left-handed attack, right? Well, right now we've got 3 coming to camp, and there's 2 really, really good lefties, 3 really good lefties. If you put Kirst into that category, odds are he's not going to be there, right? Then you got Coulter Mackesy and you got Owen Hiltz. Are one of them Boston Cannon types guys, and are they worthy of a 3rd pick or a 4th pick? We don't know that yet, right? A million things can happen between February and May, right? So that's kind of the 2 schools of thought. So you build your board out, and then you just start ranking players: 5 attackmen, 5 middies, 5 defensemen, poles, short sticks. Put a category for athlete, separated amount, goalies, etc. And then you just start watching lacrosse and talking to coaches, and it just really doesn't end. And then then you get to the draft, and you make a trade, and you trade the 3rd and 4 for 1. Coach Tierney's listening to this.
I'm sure he is.
And we get cursed, and we have a cursed family reunion, and all's right with the world. So
yeah. And then you trade 12 in the second round next year for Colkers, right?
There you go.
When Kevin retires, you get Caden Curse.
And then I bench one of them, and the other 4 quit, and then I got to start all over again. No. So, but yeah, it's fun. I enjoy it. I'm not anywhere close to the next step for us is free agency, right? So my focus right now is there anybody in free agency that can help us get better, can fill a spot for us that is voided at this point, and make us a better lacrosse team? And I think there are guys in free agency that can make us a better lacrosse team, that can fill voids for us. So, February 18th, the phone calls I can start. And I've got a list right now of anywhere from 6 to 8 guys that I'm interested in, that will start tracking on February 18th, and we'll see what we can come up with. And then whatever we get out of free agency, okay, will help us then steer more towards, again, the draft, right? Okay, we filled that hole. This was a great pickup and filled this void. Now we can just zero in on on this area potentially, or these guys to draft on 3, 4, 12. And we also have 28. So we got 4 picks this year. But I think those 3, based on history, those 3 players should help our organization tremendously. And if they don't, then I didn't do a good job. So, but I'm going to make sure I do a good job.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. That is, I think that's probably one of the best answers we've ever gotten from a guest all time, and just in terms of depth and just kind of just like a peek behind the curtain, because
Yeah.
rarely do we get to see in any sport just what goes into the draft night, which to me is one of the most fascinating things in professional sports, because I think with the PLL it's a little different because these guys have had full college careers, but especially the NBA, you're picking someone who's had like maybe 1 year of college, or the NFL they
Right.
were yeah, starter in college for 1 year, to try to project who that person's going to be, how
Yeah.
project it.
Yeah. I think what I've learned through it, I mean, again, we haven't had a lot of draft picks, so it's not like I don't have a great, I have a good track record. I just don't have a lot of volume to show for it. Right. I think it all comes down, and this is almost like college. This is almost like recruiting. Okay. You just got to get the right player that fits your system, right? Is he a cannon? And those are the questions that I talk to the college coaches about. Tell me about his character. Tell me about his work ethic. How highly motivated is he? Self-motivated, because you've got to be extremely self-motivated to succeed in the PLL. And some guys aren't. Some really good players they just love the locker room. They love being around a team. They're not guys that are going to go out like Matt Campbell and wake up at 4:30 in the morning and get his workout and his shots in and go to work at 6:30 in a high pressure job and work till 6 o'clock at night. That there's not many people are willing to do that. Okay, for X amount of dollars, right? Not paying him $5 million, right? So, you know, so my job, what I enjoy is it's almost like recruiting to me. And I loved to recruit when I was in college. It's really everything, so drafting is very similar to that, right? So we'll do our homework, talk to, all the college guys that are out there. And again, the other piece is, turning over every rock, like find another. We found one Ethan Raw. Why
Yeah.
can't we find another Ethan Raw? Right? Like they're out there for sure. And so, but it's not far off from what you guys think it is. That's why I want you to build a draft board, because I think you're going to end up having players on there, and you're going to talk through it like I talk through it. Like, does he fit our organization? Does he look like a cannon? Does he play like we want him to play? Does he play defense like Jack Keelty? Does he play offense like Matt Campbell or Vidaro or Marcus Holman? Does he play short stick like Bubba and Goody? Like, you can picture what we're looking for, right? So I don't. It's not overly taxing, and it's a lot of fun. That I know.
Yeah, I think that's
awesome.
It's good for us all to keep at the forefront of our minds, right? As we're all doing this. Certainly not for the money. Certainly not in our case. It's a lot of fun.
Ditto. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think we can just about wrap it up here, but I wanted to ask a few more questions. Jack had a great one. Do you want to?
Yeah, I'll take it away here. Coach, I was just really curious, what advice would you give to someone who wants to get into coaching?
Wow. First and foremost, why? Like, why are you doing this? I think coaching from the outside, I think there's a lot of like, I'm not, it's not glamour, but it's like, it would be really cool, right? To coach like a high school team or a PLL team or whatever. But if your why isn't right, then coaching is not fun. It's not fun, because it's an incredibly, if you're doing it and I'm not the master at this. I've just worked at it a long time. But if you're doing it the right way, it consumes your life. I don't care if you're coaching little league basketball or PLL lacrosse, because you're so wrapped up in your kids and their lives. So now you all of a sudden now go from, a family of whatever to a family of 12 to a family of 19 to a family of 25. So just think about that. Like, it's a lot of responsibility. It takes a lot of time, patience, self-reflection. Um, you've got to really be a relationship oriented person in today's world. Now, coaching back 25, 30 years ago wasn't all about the relationships, right? It was about just
Mhm.
kind of being a leader and a mentor and somebody that's going to push you to get where you're going. It's not that way anymore with kids. And it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just means that you have to adjust and adapt. Um, so I would say, why are you doing this? Like, why are you doing it? If you're doing it for fun, if you're doing it just because whatever, I'm not sure it's going to last very long. If you're doing it I know why I do it. I know my why. My why is to affect every single person that I'm teaching and coaching in a positive fashion, um, in their life. I want to help them spiritually. I want to help them mentally. I want to help them physically. I want to do whatever I can do to to arm them with the characteristics that they're going to need to lead a successful life. And I'm fortunate. I've been around long enough that I have enough scars, or I call them stripes, on my shoulder, that I can help them with. And so my motivation is strictly for the player, and whatever I can do. And sometimes that's just a hug. Sometimes that's a sit down and have an honest, heartfelt conversation. Sometimes it's a swift kick in the ass. Sometimes it's a buy him an ice cream cone. It could it runs the gamut.
Mhm.
But if your motivation is for the kids, if your motivation is for the team, and if your motivation is to help them achieve, I want our players to achieve their goals, and I will do everything in my power to help them achieve whatever goals that they have set. And that's my approach. Doesn't make it right. That's just the way I look at it. So that's a long answer, Jack, because it's a very important question to me, because I love this. I love what I do so much, and I find so much joy and reward in it. Um, but I think if you're going into coaching just kind of like, it's gonna be fun, it's something fun to do, I think you just need to dial that in a little bit more, and have a focus on relationships, and what's your objective with the kids that you're coaching. So
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I think, that makes a lot of sense. I love what you said there about the relational aspect that I think a lot of times people think of, you talk about it a lot of just going out and playing hard and look up at the scoreboard and you'll know if you won or lost. I think that's something that gets lost a lot in a professional sports, especially that we get so wrapped up in the wins or losses, but especially at a development level, like at the youth level, at the high school level, sports teaches you so much about life just in general, more than any other field ever
anything,
possibly could.
yes, anything, and that's why I love it so much, because you don't get those lessons anywhere else anymore. Like, you just don't. And you know, being gracious in victory and gracious in defeat, and learning how to handle sitting on the bench and not playing, and figuring out, the fighting through the adversity, but also, enjoying in the successes. Figuring out your role. Everybody isn't a star in this life, right? And finding ways to be comfortable with that role, and helping your team to succeed. So mean, we could go on forever. There's books written about it, and everybody talks about it. The process now. I've been talking about the process. I missed the train on all this. Been talking about the process for 30 years, and now it's like a hot commodity, and it's great because it works, and I think that's why people are talking about it. Um, but the objectives aren't about what you can't focus on winning. You focus on everything, all the attributes that you want to build into your life to be able to compete and possibly win. And that's our MPSD. That's our mental, physical, spiritual, and tactical acronym that we want as cannons to every single day fill those buckets up, each one of them to the highest level. Someday, our mental game is higher. Some days our physical game is higher. Some days our spiritual piece is more important, and tactical piece and watching film. But you got to spend time in each one of those buckets. It's just like you do in life. You just can't focus on one thing. You've got to what are the things that are going to broaden you as a human being. How can I devote some time into each one of those aspects every day that's going to make me incrementally better to compete in the world that I have to compete in, whether that's sales, architecture, engineering, sweeping the floor at the Kmart, whatever that may be. It doesn't matter to me. And for us, it's being that best version. And what does that look like as a cannon? um, and that's something that we just talk about and we practice on a daily basis. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of our guys for to starting to understand the impact that it's having in their lives, because I know it, because they tell me and we talk about it a lot. Um, and then if we put all that together and we go out on the field and we play as a team and we just play as hard as we possibly can for as long as as the overtime takes us, um, we'll see what happens, right? There's no guarantees. You can do all this shit perfectly, perfectly, and the ball bounces a funny way, and you lose. So be it.
Yeah.
But you still got better in that process. That's, to me, is the thing. You still got better. You got better in that process. All right. And I know that's hard for avid and rabid fans. Look, I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. Okay.
Oof.
Yeah. Just heartbreak, like
Yeah.
watching the end of that game and a guy that has been a hero in Baltimore, Mark Andrews, a hero. He's a type 1 diabetic, one of the nicest, hardest working people that you ever see on the face of the earth. Doesn't do anything but work hard to drop that ball, right? Like, how does that happen? You know, but he's not a bad person. Like, the team doesn't stink because that happened. It's sports. It's life, you know. So, but if you try to keep it in perspective, you just don't ride a lot of this, and I hate that. I hate the emotional waves that come when you're not secure in what it is that you believe in. And we're not going to ride a lot of waves as Cannons, and I don't want our fans to either. You know, just know that we're going to go out there and represent you guys with everything we have. That's a promise, and that's a fact. That's not bullshit. Um, and for the most part, we end up on the plus side, right? We're 14-6 the last 2 years. We won a champ series, and right now we're what 2-3 in PLL playoff games. But we're actually, if you throw the champ series playoff games in there, we're over 500 in playoff games. So, we're on the right trajectory. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all definitely agree with that. For that trajectory climbs next week.
Yes.
Um, yeah.
Yes, it
Uh,
does.
Safe to say you had everyone increase their wall ball routine after that Ravens game.
No, I let the boys handle all that stuff, right? That's part of the routine.
Yeah.
How are you getting better physically today? So if it's wall ball, it's wall ball. I don't monitor that stuff.
No.
No. So uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
that was a long answer to a short question.
no, we always
It's a
appreciate
deep
it.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Anything else either of you guys wanted to ask about?
Casey?
Well, I love everything or a lot of things that you just said.
Thank you.
Um, all of there's a lot of gold in there. You always answer with a lot of wisdom, which is one of the things that I love about a lot of interviews that I've listened to or watched with you. Um, but with the piece that, you always talk about how much you pour into your guys, right? And holistically, every part of their being. What are some ways that you make sure that you get poured into and that you continue to be able to show up for the guys like you do, day after day, season after season?
Wow, that's a nice question. You know,
Whew.
Sorry if I
I've
caught you
never
off
had
guard with
anybody
that.
really care about me on an interview before. So,
I'm
um,
a big fan of yours, so.
thank you. Uh, I don't know, Casey. Like well, it starts with my faith. Um, that's that's really the center for everything for me. Um, um, as I've gotten, I don't want to say older, I think just more mature. Just spending more time with God, more time reading, learning, praying um, for that wisdom, praying for the strength, praying for the ability to feel my players, for the ability to relate to them. It starts there. I've got an incredible wife. I mean, we've been married for 37 years. Um, she loves lacrosse. She loves what I do, and she's really, really supportive. So she's easy to talk to. Um, and I just believe in surrounding, and I think this is part of life too. You surround yourself with really, really good people. They're naturally gonna lift you up, right? Like our assistants, like Mikey Thompson, I still talk to Mikey all the time. Like he's this beautiful human being. Like he's spirit is effervescent. Mitch is awesome. Like he's always in a good mood. He's always charging, like go. And Brodie, I talk to him, and I've got other coaching friends, Chris Fifes, who I coach with at Carolina. So if I'm ever feeling sort of a little off, I'll probably reach out to one of those guys and just shoot the shit with them a little bit. But um, I got a really good workout routine. So physically, I you know release some stress that way. But at the end of the day, I just love this so much. Like I feel bad when I like last year when we lost to the Chaos. That was probably one of the tougher moments for me because I felt like I let the team down, and I felt like I didn't do a good job of coaching. That's the only time I get a little bit off, or it just. Um, but what that does is motivate me to do a better job this year. So to answer your question, first of all, I really appreciate you asking that. I just make sure I'm doing the same things I'm asking our players to do, is be centered. Think about the bigger picture. There's so much more that's greater than what you are and that I am and what we're doing. Um, don't sweat the small stuff for sure. Surround yourself with really, really, really good people that you trust and care for, and they care for you, and you know that. Um, and just pray a lot. And you know, and something else that I do too is just I try to stay in touch with our players on a consistent basis throughout the year because they feed my fire, right? When I can
Mhm.
get on the phone and talk to Connor Kirst or Colin Kirst or Marcus Holman or Bryce Young or Jeff Trainer, like they fuel me, right? So I make sure that I stay in touch with them because that's fueling the things that keep me going. So it's a little bit of all those things, but I appreciate you asking. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Like that sounds like a fantastic note to end on. So Coach, thank you again for your time. We always appreciate it. Yeah, can't wait to see you in person next week. And yeah, hopefully we're celebrating together on Monday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. We will do our best. And if we don't, we'll still find something to celebrate, right? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I
All right.
certainly speak for myself and Casey when I say we're just glad to be there. Be
Yes.
able to support our team another weekend.
Awesome. Can't wait to see you. Casey, you're a great addition.
Oh, thank you so much, Coach.
Yeah, I love the smile. All right.
Thank you.
Jack, I'm going to be checking on that board and soon. So let's get that thing rolling, buddy.
Getting
All right.
cracking right away.
Absolutely.
Hayden, you're awesome. Thank you guys so much. All
All
right.
right. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Thank
coach.
you.
See you soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
And thanks again to Coach Holman for hopping on here. That was, I always just love talking to him. He is a phenomenal human, and he gave some fantastic answers. Not that he doesn't ever. He's just all of his answers, I feel like, are always so great, but he just gave us so much depth and so much detail and so much thought for him to give that much
Mhm.
time on a Monday night to us. Like, he says that he appreciates what we do, but I mean, we totally appreciate him. Just, he does not need to come on this podcast and talk to us for an hour.
For more
Like,
than an hour, yeah, because we were talking for 10 minutes before we started recording.
that he's so giving. He's just so giving. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really easy to see why everyone in the locker room buys in.
Yeah.
And then you add, obviously Brodie Merrill's.
Almost everyone.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, could not. That was quite the answer on the Pat Kavanagh trade. I hope we don't start any drama with that, but it was really cool to see to get just a bigger understanding because I know
Hmm.
there was some of our followers, listeners, whatever, were not excited when that trade was announced. I certainly had some mixed feelings on it too.
I
Um,
didn't love it. I mean, I was there at the draft
yeah,
last year when we took him, and it was my dream all season to have Pat Kavanagh join Matt Kavanagh, and then it came true. And I was there when it happened, and I couldn't have been happier about how the board fell. And for him to just be traded away right away, I was not thrilled when that news broke.
no,
But
no, but like you said, it is a rare luxury to have those back-to-back picks, and
true.
yeah, if a guy doesn't want to be there, you're not doing the team any favors by keeping him there. So uh,
Yeah.
we wish him the best in Denver, and we're grateful for what that trade gave the Cannons. 'Cause I think it, like he had mentioned, they've I think have had the fewest amount of draft picks, at least in Brian Holman's tenure of any team in the league.
Sean Quirk did not like draft picks.
No. Well, the Rabel pick really screwed them because that was like two first round. It was like a first round pick that
Oh
year and
yeah,
the
yeah,
year. And then I
yeah.
think to get a first round draft pick back, the Cannons traded the following year's first round pick, which is why
Right.
Brian Holman didn't have a first rounder until 2024.
Hmm.
Um, we don't need to litigate that. We're just moving forward. Uh,
Yep.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, those are some amazing answers from Coach. It's always a wonderful conversation. I don't think we need to put too much of a button on it. Um, yeah, can't wait to see the actual games get played. And then, we're going to have a lot more content coming at you that week. We're not quite sure what the schedule is going to look like. Those games do end pretty late, but we're going to try to have some fans on or some players on rather, maybe some fans on, but definitely some players on uh, at some point in that week, out whether the off days or leading up to it or whatever. Because it's a fast-paced week, but we want to get as much as we can out of it. Um, yeah, Casey, thank you for coming on. How was your first experience?
Oh, it was great. I don't think it could have been with a better guest as coach. Big fan of his, been for a long time. So um he he's just fantastic to talk to just hear all the wisdom from him that he has. I hope one day he writes that book. I definitely would buy a copy. Uh,
Same here.
but yeah, yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah,
Looking forward to seeing him at Champ Series and any future talks that we have with him for sure.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, like I said, he's been our most frequent guest up to this point. Would love for another player to overtake him for a bit, but I'm sure Coach will consistently rank in the top spots. Because we'll want to have him on around the draft. I'm sure we'll want to have him on during the season. I think 2 or 3 times a year is a good goal for that,
I
and I think
agree.
that works for
I
him too.
agree.
Um, all right, yes. Thank you all for listening. Um, you can't wait to see you, any of you who are coming in Champ Series. Hopefully that's, a good number of you. It's not the easiest location to get to if you're from Boston. Certainly the Whipsnakes fans have an advantage there. But I think you'll see a good number of Cannons jerseys. No water dogs, so that always makes things better. And yeah, like I said, we look forward to it all, and we hope we're celebrating in a couple weeks from now. So I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, until we talk to you again from Champ Series, go Cannons.
Go Cannons.
Boom.
Boom!
Boom.